Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, and that intro is very awkward to do in front of a live audience, aside from an internet audience. But today, I'm going to talk about sexual assault in the anime community as it relates to Vic Mignogna and Todd Haberkorn. So, if you're in for an uplifting discussion, you've come to the right place. Todd Haberkorn and Vic Mignogna have both been recently accused of various sexual assault style offenses, and they have been accused about offenses that occurred allegedly years ago. They have been accused outside of the court of law and in the court of public opinion, primarily on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media. Of course, we've seen this happen outside of the anime community. We've seen this happen to people like Brett Kavanaugh. We've seen it happen to people like Harvey Weinstein. We've seen it happen to people like Bill Cosby. Some of these are valid accusations. Some of them are not. The problem is, at least in the case of Vic Mignogna and Todd Haberkorn, these cases are not going through the criminal process, which means we don't have any way to test the evidence against them. If there is any evidence, we don't have a way for them to confront their accusers. We don't have any of that. So what I'm going to talk about today are methods, let me rephrase that. What I'm going to talk about today is how you report sexual assault, why you should report sexual assault when it happens, and the damage that happens from not reporting sexual assault at the time but talking about it later, and why we shouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Okay. That said, let's get into it. A brief recap for those of you who are unaware. Vic Mignogna is the voice of Broly and Edward Elric. Sorry, I keep misstating it as Edwin, but that's because I'm not much of an anime. Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist, as well as many other voices. Todd Haberkorn is also a prominent voice actor. I don't know his specific roles, but he has voiced many different characters in many of the shows that you have watched. That said, both of these gentlemen are involved in these sort of spurious allegations against them. Both of them have decided to lawyer up with a law firm out of Tyler, Texas, Beard, Harris, Bullock, and Hughes. And at least for now, Vic Mignogna has a GoFundMe page that has raised over $100,000. Todd Haberkorn's GoFundMe page is pending, but it is not published yet. As soon as it is up, I will let everyone know about it. So how did we get here? How did we get to this place where these gentlemen are being accused of events that allegedly occurred a decade or more ago? We got to this point by people, and I'm not talking about in reference to Vic or Todd, I'm talking about people in general refusing to report sexually assaultive crimes or sexually assaultive behavior. There's a stigma, for better or worse, there is, well, for worse, very much for worse. Let me clarify that. There is a stigma about reporting sexual assault crimes to the authorities. This stigma needs to go away, and I'm going to talk about some of the protections that are in place for victims and why to address this specific stigma. Back prior to 1994, there was no real protection for victims of sexual assault who came forward. So what would happen is a victim would come forward, report someone of a crime, and because we have a constitutional system, the person accused would have the right to face and cross-examine their accuser. When they did this, a common tactic was to bring up the alleged victim's sexual history to then paint them as someone who was condoning assaultive behavior. All right, for lack of better words, they would basically say she was asking for it because she's always asked for it. It's a very common tactic. It was very embarrassing for victims to have to sit on a witness stand and answer for their entire sexual history, and most people didn't want to do that. You know, not everyone wants that drama out in public. In 1994, Congress passed a modification to the Violence Against Women Act, which included two provisions to help prevent this. One, it provided anonymity for the victims of sexual assault. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to answer for their accusations in court. What it does mean is that the reporting of those people on the public records was reduced to initials. So any court documents that came out would not have their full name listed, it would not have their address listed, and any of that information would be redacted to protect their identity. So very important provision that was put in place there. The next was something called a rape shield law, and that was to prevent the admissibility of evidence of sexual activity that was outside of the present case. This was one of the most interesting and most important changes. It got rid of that shaming tactic that was used by criminal defense attorneys prior to 1994. It no longer allowed the attorney to ask those questions on the witness stand. And it really did go leaps and bounds into protecting victims' identities and protecting victims' dignity in the court, in public court records. This, of course, was all before social media. 1994. I don't know if you guys remember what the internet was like in 1994, but it was not a pretty place. Things did not spread around the way that they do now. It was mostly relegated to people with specific expertise or skill in getting access to online materials. The general public was not using it in the way that they do now, and there was certainly nothing like social media. As social media boomed, of course, we've been adjusting to that, and we've gone away from major news media reporting on things, and we've gone away from looking to court records, and we've gone into the realm of just taking people at their word, because why would you go on the internet and lie? No one's ever done that before. So with that, we had put in place protections for victims, but now we allow people who may or may not be victims to come out and say whatever they want on social media. Here's the problem with that. As I stated before, the criminal process and the civil process that we've developed from a constitutional perspective gives an equal amount of protection to victims and the accused. That's an important part of the process. Both parties deserve the full protection of the legal process. And when we've taken things out of that context, we actually increase danger for everybody involved. So how does this all relate to this specific case? Or these specific incidents, cases, whatever? It relates because we have subverted that legal process and we've gone only to the court of public opinion. When we've done that, what we've done is taken away the ability of the authorities to actually enforce if there were some sort of assaultive behavior. We've taken away the ability of the world to know that these have been tested. These accusations have been tested and aren't just being shouted into the wind. And we've allowed those accusations that are untested to destroy the careers of one person and potentially working on the career of a second. So what should you do? Many of you who are involved in conventions, who go to conventions, or who deal with, and this goes beyond the anime community, of course, who deal with any sort of workplace interaction with other people, are potentially victims of sexual assault anytime you encounter someone. That's how it goes. Anytime we have interpersonal communication with someone else, we are potentially a victim, right? Depending on what they do. So, what you need to do, what everyone needs to do, is know how to report these things. If you believe yourself to be the victim of some sort of assault, you need to go to the authorities. Now, the authorities can be a workplace HR department, and they can be the police. Outside of that, really there aren't many organizations that you need to report to actually get enforcement. Now, if you don't want to enforce against the other person, if you don't want to bring the weight of administrative justice against someone, that's fine. That's actually a valid choice many people take. Some people just want to focus on their own personal healing, and that's okay. But if you choose to do that, if you choose that path, you lose the opportunity to bring those charges against someone at a later date. And that's very important. You have to realize the ramifications of that. So as a lawyer, I always encourage people to get lawyers. I always encourage people to use the official process, because that official process is how we ensure that everything is done and tested to the best our system is able to do it, which ensures the safety for everybody. All right? So if you believe yourself to be the victim of sexual assault, contact, again, your workplace HR if you're in a workplace, or you contact the police. Now, when you go to the police, they're going to take statements. They're going to ask who else was a witness to this. If it was a severe assault that might involve the exchange of bodily fluids, they will do various tests to see if they can gather any DNA or other physical evidence. Very, very important part of the process, because if we're just going off the allegations of one person, this is important for your own situation. If you're just going off of he said, she said, the authorities are not going to be able to do too much with that without an overwhelming amount of convincing testimony. So they'll, like I said, they'll take down names, they'll actually start interviewing people, and they'll move through the criminal process if necessary. If the criminal process doesn't work, you actually do have the option of pursuing civil damages against someone who has sexually assaulted you. A lot of people don't know this, but just like a wrongful death versus a murder situation, if the police are unwilling or unable to gather enough evidence to charge someone with murder, you can actually pursue a wrongful death action against them. This happened with the O.J. Simpson trial, where they were not able to convict him of murder of Nicole Brown. However, Nicole Brown's family were able to get a civil conviction of wrongful death and actually take pretty much all of OJ's money. Rip OJ's bank account. All right, so the same process happens with sexual assault. If you're not able to gather enough evidence, there is a civil remedy. Again, you need to talk to a lawyer and find out the appropriate way to bring that civil action into court, and how you gather evidence and discuss and interview witnesses and collect statements. A lawyer would help out with that. All right. So why do we do this? Why is this so critically important? It's so critically important. Again, I'm repeating myself, but that's how this stream is going to go. That's how this speech is going to go, because I can't hammer in enough how important it is to the safety of the community that alleged crimes are reported, investigated, and tested. When you go to a convention, when you're at your workplace, both of those instances, you should feel safe. You should always feel safe. We should not be looking over our shoulders. We should not be wondering if we're going to be groped or assaulted or taken into someone's room against our will or anything like that. That should never be a concern. This is a community that is a fan community. It's positive, it's reinforcing, and we shouldn't have to worry about our presence at any of these activities. That's why reporting these things is so important. That's why handling sexual assault cases through the criminal process and the civil process is so important. Now, how did that not occur? It did not occur, apparently, in Vic Mignogna and Todd Haberkorn's case, despite some pretty serious accusations being levied against them. And both of these, in Vic Mignogna's case, you have serious accusations happening both in the workplace and at conventions. In Todd Haberkorn's case, you have a very serious accusation being levied against him during his attendance at a convention. So again, it's about the safety of the community. It's about the safety of everyone involved. And most importantly, it's about justice for both victims and the people who are accused. That party in sexual assault cases tends to get forgotten. But until someone is found guilty of a crime, they are innocent. And that innocence is a very important part, not only of our legal system, but our entire social structure. If we convict people in the court of public opinion without having a chance to test the evidence, then we have simply taken away the government's ability to enforce and put it in the hands of mobs with pitchforks and torches. We've tried to move away from that a couple hundred years ago, and we're struggling every day to get right back to it. Again, the importance of reporting cannot be overstated. There are protections in place for people who do choose to report. It's very important that you understand those protections. It's very important that those protections are used. And if there need to be more protections, you have Congress people who are more than willing to listen to you. You have lawyers who are more than willing to help find creative and effective ways to protect victims from shame and public humiliation. So if you need information on that, you can of course send me messages and I will help get you to that information. But getting back to Vic Mignogna's case and Todd Haberkorn's case, I want to transition now from that sort of public service announcement about sexual assault into some more information about those two cases. As I stated yesterday, for those of you who were not watching at home yesterday or who haven't seen the replay of that video, and for those of you who are here today, Vic Mignogna's case seems to be moving along pretty quickly. I stated yesterday that I believe it got very real for some of the parties involved, and it will probably get a little more real for a few other parties on Monday. That is going to happen very soon, if I had to guess. The next step basically is litigation for a lot of these parties. That means that lawsuits are coming. And if they're watching, I've been telling you for a couple weeks that lawsuits are coming. There are people out there who have pretended that I'm lying about this or something, but trust me, lawsuits are coming. And if you don't have lawyers yet, which I don't think you do, if you don't have lawyers yet, I would get out a phone book and start looking real quick. What people don't seem to understand is that because we're moving in internet time, because we're moving in social media time, it seems like this is taking a very long time for things to happen. But you've got to remember that Vic Mignogna hired Beard Harris, Bullock and Hughes only a couple weeks ago. And in that couple weeks, quite a bit of stuff has happened on social media, and behind the scenes, those lawyers are having to catch up and go through all of the tweets, all of the direct messages, all of the emails that are coming in. There's quite a bit of evidence to go through as they construct their complaints. Moving on a case like this in a couple of weeks is very, very fast. So I know many of you, I get questions every day. Where are the documents? Where are the lawsuits? You guys have to understand just how fast this is moving. I know it seems to take forever because every day it seems like so much is happening. There's so many people putting out videos about this. There's so much chatter on Twitter and other social media. You've got voice actors and cosplayers privating and deleting their accounts left and right. It's almost embarrassing. But the real time, not the internet time on this, is still very swift. And that's because Beard Harris, Bullock and Hughes is a very agile law firm. They're able to adapt to these sort of moving situations, whereas other lawyers would still be weeks out from filing anything. And that's an important thing to have when you are having your career destroyed in front of you in real time. It's very important to have a responsive law firm and a capable law firm, and not just one person trying to work through all of this. So Todd Haberkorn's case is, of course, a little bit behind that timeline. He only very recently hired a lawyer. I think that was announced on my stream with Ty Beard, which was just on Monday. Ty Beard announced that Todd Haberkorn had retained their firm and that they will be moving forward in the appropriate way. So again, I will be updating on those cases as those updates arrive. I will be publishing the GoFundMe page for Todd Haberkorn as soon as I get a green light from him, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with both of these incidents, but it should be very interesting. As far as Funimation goes, Funimation yesterday, I was able to report seem to have removed Vic Mignogna's credit from the Super Broly movie on iTunes. It was also removed from Google Play. Again, they did respond to me and say that that was some sort of glitch or mistake, which is very, very interesting timing on that glitch and mistake. And it's very, very interesting that they had a similar glitch disabling their unsubscribe button a few days ago. So we'll see how that resolves. I haven't, I guess I could check it live. Let me see if we've got him back on the credits yet. I imagine this is a process, because it's on the internet, I imagine this is a process that takes weeks and weeks and weeks to fix. You know, nothing, oh, he is back on iTunes. Good job, Funimation. I'm very happy that they did that. Thankfully, they were able to send the telegraph or whatever to get that fixed right away. So I'm happy to report that that has been repaired. Again, the next step is litigation for several parties involved. People have asked me who will be the targets of litigation. I obviously do not know the specific targets, but if I had to guess right now, the short list of targets includes Jamie Markey, Monica Rial, Ron Toye, Monica's fiance, Funimation, Rooster Teeth, and potentially a couple other voice actors who have not been as prominently discussing things, but may have had some background sort of chatter and direct messages that might be able to implicate them in a lawsuit. If any of these parties are not named in a lawsuit yet, I would expect that we will see them being deposed or get discovery requests very soon as part of some of the other lawsuits. Oh, I left out Kaylin Saucedo, Anime News Network, and IO9, which is a subsidiary of Gizmodo, which I believe is a subsidiary of Gawker. And they don't have the best track record with lawsuits over the past couple years, so that would be interesting to see as well. But at this time, I'd like to open up for any questions from my live audience here. If anybody has any questions about what's going on, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll look and see if there are any questions that came in from YouTube that I can answer. Does anybody have any questions here? What was it? Looks like there's no questions here in the live audience currently. Internet Conman asks, what's for lunch? Thank you for, I don't know yet. I got to go find something. Thank you for stressing the importance of reporting to police. It's traumatic, but it's necessary to take rapists off the streets. Yeah, it very much is. It very much is. We do have a process for dealing with these types of events, and that process has to be followed so we can actually protect people around us. It's weird, but it's true. Let's see. Intimidator0108 says, for those who are involved with sabotaging Vic's career in voice acting, how badly do you think that some of these people will get punished? Well, let's put this in legal terms. What are the damages? What are the damages that Vic Mignogna can pursue against these people? The damages are a couple-fold. We have two types of relief. We have monetary relief. That's where people have to pay for the lost work and lost income that Vic Mignogna has due to their accusations. And then the other type of relief would be what we call injunctive relief, where they have to stop making negative statements and accusations against Vic Mignogna or Todd Haberkorn, and they may have to issue retractions and apologies for making false statements in the first place. Those types of relief are critical for rehabilitating Vic Mignogna's career. If he's able to get retractions and apologies from employers and from coworkers, then the allegations carry far less weight as he goes to pursue work in the future. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be back at Funimation, of course, or Rooster Teeth. I think those prospects may be forlorn hopes at this point, but it does mean that he can pursue other voice acting activity, and when they bring up these potential social stigmas, he can say, you know what, we actually tested this in court, I prevailed, they issued apologies and retractions because it turned out everything they said was a complete lie. So extremely valuable to him. There is, of course, the other part, the non-legal fallout from all of this, And I think Funimation is probably feeling that right now. I think Rooster Teeth might be feeling that right now in lost subscribers, in negative PR. They're getting eaten alive on Twitter. People do not trust them. And that's a big problem for companies like Funimation and Rooster Teeth, where a large portion of their income comes from, they pay for these shows. They pay for the rights to the shows, and a large portion of their income comes directly from fans. Did you have a question? Yes. Yep. So the question from the audience here was, wouldn't it be litigation for the person who started the entire Kick Vic movement, the hashtag Kick Vic, which is that is Mars Girl. That is Kaylin Saucedo. I mentioned her by the name Kaylin Saucedo, but yes, Mars Girl, I would imagine, has a big giant target on her forehead for a big packet of papers to come sometime in the very near future. If I believe the rumor mill, I understand that she has maybe started to walk back some of her statements. I don't know if that will be effective for her or not, but we'll have to see. But there's one thing I want to stress in all of this. I keep talking about litigation. I keep talking about lawsuits being filed. I want to stress that to my knowledge, no lawsuits have been filed and no lawsuits have been served upon the parties. The reason that's important, the reason that is critically important for those parties, is that it is very, very easy to end litigation before it starts. Litigation ends before it actually starts all the time. Settlement. You talk to the other party, you figure out what they want, and then if it's something you agree with, you can avoid litigation by maybe making some apologies and retractions. There may be money involved depending on who it is. But listen, you have to realize what Vic has stated over and over that he wants. He just wants to work. He wants to work in the community. He wants to be part of the community. He wants these false allegations retracted. So if any of those parties happen to see this message, or if any of you have a line to those parties, now this is not a call for random people to go contact these parties or anything like that. This is a call for people with actual, real connection to those parties. If you know them, talk to them about the possibility of avoiding litigation. There's no shame in that. It's actually a very smart move. Lawyers hate doing actual lawsuits. They love resolving them outside of court. It keeps the costs down for their clients. It keeps the costs down for the other party. It allows the lawyers to free up their schedules and work on other things. We love to settle litigation without having to go through a 1 to 2 year long process. And trust me, you will love to settle litigation rather than having it hang over your head for 1 to 2 years. It is stressful. It is depressing. It is really a horrible place to be. So I can't stress enough. If you are on the other side of this, if you have direct connections to any of these people, or if you're one of those parties involved, you should honestly be considering right now discussing things with Vic Mignogna's lawyers, finding out if there is common ground and if this horrific process can be avoided. That being said, I'm going to take a couple questions from YouTube. I noticed a very big donation come through, and I want to make sure and get that. Thank you very much. Mithran Emrys says, can you speculate on the type of suits Vic might be able to file against the various people involved, the VAs and the companies? Yes, certainly there's defamation, defamation of character is one of the big suits that's going to be involved there. The other main ones would be business defamation, which would come in the form of tortious interference with prospective business relations. You have tortious interference with contract, depending on some of the conventions that have dropped Vic, and depending on the knowledge of the parties involved who have advocated against Vic in terms of Funimation and Rooster Teeth. And then finally, you have civil conspiracy charges that would have overlap with any of those previously mentioned causes of action, so long as you could find two parties who discussed it and then considered actually furthering those causes of action. So it's really going to depend on the facts of who is involved specifically in each suit as to what cause of action they would bring against them. It would also kind of depend on what jurisdiction each one was in. But I think for companies like Anime News Network, on their face you've got defamation of character and then tortious interference with prospective business relations being primary. You probably don't have, no, you probably do have a civil conspiracy there, as the Anime News Network community seems to be a giant cancerous growth that is spread across a bunch of common actors. So that's possible. Those are the main causes of action right now. There may be some others out there. I'm not an expert on Texas specific statutes, but if I find out any other causes of action that are possible, I will definitely update it. Let's see. I'm Justin Y, and I post pointless trash. Says, take your wife to dinner when you get some free time, homie. This should get a couple bacon McDoubles. Thank you so much for that, Justin. I really do appreciate it. Wonder Girl says lunch is on her. Thank you very much. Okay, this is an interesting question. MMK Moore 1 says, Justice Thomas wants the Supreme Court, that's Clarence Thomas, wants the Supreme Court to reconsider New York Times versus Sullivan. Can Vic's case drive that if it were to end up there? Possibly. That's actually a possibility. I don't think so, because I don't think these parties will actually want to go through the long appeals process that would get to the Supreme Court. But briefly, New York Times versus Sullivan is where the public figure doctrine of defamation law was created. It's a very important case. It says that people who are public figures have a higher bar to proving defamation. Now, what is a public figure back in, I think, 1972 when that case was decided? I might have the year wrong on that, but it's somewhere around there. What was a public figure then versus what is a public figure today is very, very different. Because we have social media, because we have people you've never heard of with millions of followers and millions of viewers, what even is a public figure anymore is a very open question. In Vic's case, that will be an argument that both parties will make. I know that a firm like Beard and Harris will be preparing for the fact that he will be labeled a public figure, but will be arguing against him being a public figure. Of course, they'll prepare for the worst outcome, but they will, be arguing for the easiest outcome. So Ricky Bowersock says, is there possible damages against Mars Girl? Yes, absolutely. And finally, let's see. Ryan Boggs asks, I know cameras aren't always allowed, but might we be able to get someone to make transcripts of the court trials if it does go to court? Yes, absolutely. This will almost guaranteed be public hearings in Texas, wherever they're filed. There's almost no way there would be a gag order issued on any of this. So people should be able to go in to any of the hearings and sit down and, transcribe what's going on. And, the court may actually record it. The parties may be able to request a recording. There's lots of possibility there. It's just courts typically don't like that, except in very, very high profile cases. I don't know if this one would technically qualify. But anyways, unless there are any other questions, I'll probably wrap this panel up. Again, I want to just re-hit the importance of reporting anything that resembles sexual misconduct. It's important to protecting yourself and protecting the community. It's important to making sure that allegations don't sit and fester for decades, ruining careers behind the scenes. It looks like the stream is having a bad hiccup, but that's okay. It's really important to, just going ahead and ensuring that everything is taken care of properly. So with that, I'm going to, did you have one more question? Yeah, okay, so the question was, Ron Toye. Ron Toye has indicated his his intent to go to court. He says he's ready for it. I think he said he relishes it, which I'm going to guess is just some kayfabe sort of pro wrestling talk. But he says he is ready for it and wants to do it because he definitely wants to have all of these random women testify, not realizing that probably won't happen. But the question was, even if they settle with all sorts of other people but don't settle with Ron Toye, would he still have to go through the litigation process? And the answer is, if Ron Toye is sued and refuses to settle, then yes. And various information could come out from there that could implicate other parties. Some of the people who do settle will likely be involved in the discovery. Now, part of the settlement may involve turning over some of those communications against other people. I don't know exactly what Beard Harris would be asking for in settlement, but that would be up to them and their client. So hopefully, does that answer your question? All right. So hopefully that answers your question. Soundo Sapphire says, just so you know, Vic isn't listed on Amazon for DBS Broly. I sent you a DM with the information. Signed, the sweet cheeks who had the lumbar puncture. Yes, although I think that Amazon listing only has like 3 people listed. So hopefully that's, I don't know if that's the same sort of situation, but like I did say, I do want to give credit for Funimation for fixing the iTunes thing, and hopefully the Google Play one is fixed as well. But with that, I'm going to wrap up this panel. Thank you all for watching. I will be back on at 5 o'clock. What? I will be back on at 5 o'clock, and I will be streaming again, so if you have any questions, some people did direct message me some questions, and I'll be trying to answer those at 5. So thank you very much. You guys have a great day. Peace.